Have you ever wondered about the mysteries left unrevealed in the pages of the Bible? Imagine that, beyond the well-known stories of Adam, Eve, and Cain, there are buried secrets that could change our understanding of humanity's origins. The hidden daughters of Adam and Eve and Cain's wife are just the tip of an ancient and fascinating enigma. While the Bible provides us with a powerful and spiritual view of creation, some stories remain in the shadows, shedding light on intriguing issues that challenge our beliefs. What does the Bible really hide about these enigmatic figures and their family connections? Let's discover together what really happened and how these narratives impact our understanding of the world. Genesis describes the creation of Adam and Eve, the beginning of humanity, and their relationship with God. In the beginning, God created man and woman, Adam and Eve, as reported in Genesis. This initial act was not just the start of humanity but the beginning of a deep and special relationship with God. Adam and Eve lived in the Garden of Eden, a paradise symbolizing the perfect communion between creation and the Creator. The Bible tells us they were in harmony with God, enjoying a life of peace and abundance. Imagine the scene, a place where God's presence was tangible, and everything Adam and Eve needed was within reach. It was heaven on earth, a reflection of divine goodness and care. God made Adam the guardian of the garden, tasking him with caring for and cultivating the land. Eve, created from one of Adam's ribs, was given as a companion so they could live together in perfect unity and harmony. This relationship was not only physical but spiritual. They lived in a state of pure innocence, needing no clothing, as they did not know shame. The Bible describes Adam and Eve enjoying God's presence in the cool of the day, a sign of an intimate and ongoing relationship with the divine. Thus, the beginning of humanity was not just a historical event but a narrative of how God intended humans to live in perfect harmony with Him. The creation of Adam and Eve marked the start of a cycle where the relationship with God was central to human life. They were the image of God on earth, reflecting the perfection and goodness He had established. It was a time of peace and fullness, where communication with the Creator was direct and unbarred. This perfect scenario began to change with the introduction of sin, a central theme in the biblical narrative. The Garden of Eden represents an ideal state of existence, but Adam and Eve's disobedience brought consequences that would affect all of humanity. They were warned about the fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and their choice to disobey caused a rupture in the direct and pure relationship they had with God. This act of disobedience not only altered the course of human history but also revealed the complexity of free will and its consequences. As we explore what follows, it will be crucial to understand how Adam and Eve's disobedience created a profound and lasting impact on humanity. This first sin was not merely a violation of a divine order but the beginning of a complex and often challenging journey for humanity to seek and restore its connection with God. And it is this journey that leads us to explore the story of their children, Cain and Abel, and how their choices shaped the future of humanity. Cain and Abel, the children of Adam and Eve, both offered sacrifices to God, but only Abel's offering was accepted. Cain and Abel grew up in a world that had drastically changed since creation. While Adam and Eve experienced the reality of disobedience and its consequences, Cain and Abel lived under the shadow of these changes. The two brothers, in an act of worship to God, decided to offer sacrifices. Cain, a farmer, brought fruits from the land, while Abel, a shepherd, offered the best of his flock. This act of offering sacrifices was not merely a formality. It was an expression of faith and devotion to God. However, God responded differently to each offering. Abel's offering was accepted, but Cain's was rejected. This outcome was not merely a matter of divine preference but reflected something deeper about the attitude and sincerity of the giver. Abel offered the best of his animals, a sign of his genuine faith and gratitude to God. Cain, on the other hand, offered fruits, but the quality and spirit of his offering were questioned. This episode highlights the importance of giving God our best, not just what is left over or convenient. The fact that God accepted Abel's offering and rejected Cain's revealed a crucial lesson about the kind of worship that pleases God. It is not just about the external act of offering something, but about the attitude of the heart. Cain, despite his gesture, showed a lack of sincerity and devotion in his offering. This fundamental difference caused Cain to feel injustice and envy, which he was unable to handle in a healthy way. The rejection of Cain's offering had a profound impact on him. Instead of seeking to understand what God desired, Cain allowed envy and resentment to take over his heart. This feeling, fueled by his lack of understanding and repentance, led to the first recorded murder in the Bible, that of his own brother Abel. The violence that arose from this rejection illustrates how a lack of communication and an inability to handle emotions can lead to devastating actions. This event invites us to reflect on how we handle our own offerings and devotions to God. True worship and dedication are not only about what we offer but also about the attitude with which we offer it. The story of Cain and Abel underscores the need to examine our hearts and give our best to God, not just in material terms but in sincerity and love. And as we move forward, we will see how the consequences of this event profoundly impacted Cain's life and the development of humanity. The rejection of Cain's offering led to envy, driving him to kill Abel, the first murder in history. Cain's rejection was more than just disappointment, it was the catalyst for a deep sense of envy and resentment. Unable to understand or accept the reason for the rejection, Cain allowed his frustration to turn into something destructive. The envy that grew in his heart began to consume his thoughts and actions, leading him to a breaking point. This transition from feeling to action is a classic example of how negative emotions can spiral out of control if not properly managed. The Bible recounts that Cain, consumed by envy, invited Abel to the field, a secluded place where the crime was more likely to go unnoticed. This invitation was, in fact, a guise for the dark act that followed. Cain murdered Abel in a moment of anger and despair, committing the first recorded homicide in history. This tragic event marked a significant shift in the human narrative, introducing violence and loss as direct consequences of sin and a lack of emotional control. Abel's murder was not just a personal tragedy but a visible manifestation of the impact of disobedience and sin on human life. The relationship between Cain and Abel, once marked by brotherhood and respect, was destroyed by envy. The act of violence committed by Cain highlighted the harsh reality of how sin can erode human relationships and turn worship into hostility. This moment serves as a powerful reminder of the importance of handling negative emotions healthily before they lead us to harmful actions. Cain's behavior after Abel's murder also reveals a lack of repentance and difficulty in dealing with the consequences of his actions. When God confronted Cain, he responded with indifference and disdain, showing no signs of true contrition. The failure to acknowledge the gravity of his act only worsened his situation, reflecting a disconnect from the principles of justice and mercy that God desires in his children. This episode invites us to reflect on how we handle our own feelings of envy and frustration. Instead of letting these emotions consume us, we should seek ways to channel them positively, as Cain might have done if he had faced his emotions more constructively. The next chapter in Cain's story, marked by his punishment and fear of being killed, reveals even more about the consequences of his actions and prepares us to understand how God dealt with this situation in a just and merciful manner. As punishment, Cain was cursed and condemned to wander the earth, unable to cultivate it. After the tragic murder of Abel, Cain faced a severe punishment from God. Instead of a death sentence, Cain was cursed to wander the earth without the ability to till the soil. This punishment, while harsh, was a reflection of divine justice and the necessity for Cain to face the consequences of his actions. The punishment of being unable to cultivate the land symbolized the loss of stability and prosperity he once knew, demonstrating that actions have tangible and enduring repercussions. Wandering aimlessly was more than just a change of location, it was a metaphor for the alienation and isolation Cain would endure. Without the ability to cultivate the land, Cain was condemned to a life of struggle and hardship, deprived of the agricultural productivity that once sustained him. This punishment emphasizes the connection between actions and their consequences, showing that divine justice manifests in practical and impactful ways. The land, once a symbol of sustenance and stability, now became a source of suffering and uncertainty. When Cain received this punishment, he expressed his fear of being killed by others. This fear suggests that the human population had expanded beyond Adam and Eve's immediate family, revealing a society more complex than initially assumed. Cain's fear for his life indicates the presence of other people beyond Adam and Eve's children, raising questions about how humanity rapidly expanded after creation and the importance of family and social relationships in preserving divine order. To protect Cain and ensure his survival, God marked him with a sign, a gesture of mercy that ensured no one would harm him. This sign was a visible reminder of God's commitment to justice but also to protection. The mark on Cain not only distinguished him from others but also served as a warning to those who might encounter him that he was protected by God despite his transgression. This mark also reinforces the idea that even in the face of punishment, God provides a form of protection and care. Cain's life, marked by this punishment, illustrates the complexities of divine justice and the ways in which God interacts with humanity. As we explore the subsequent events, it is essential to understand how Cain's punishment and the protection offered by God reflect the balance between justice and mercy. Cain's journey, now aimlessly wandering, sets the stage for the development of civilization and human societies that would emerge, shaping the future of humanity. Cain's fear of being killed by others suggests the existence of a population beyond his family. Cain's fear of being killed by other individuals reveals an intriguing aspect of the biblical narrative, the existence of a larger population than initially mentioned in the Bible. As Cain was punished and condemned to wander the earth, he expressed a legitimate concern that his life might be in danger, suggesting that he was not the only human on earth. This fear offers a hint about the rapid expansion of humanity following the creation of Adam and Eve. The concept of a population beyond Adam and Eve's immediate family may seem surprising, but it is an important implication of the narrative. The Bible does not extensively detail how humanity multiplied, but Cain's fear suggests that the population had grown significantly. This expansion must have been crucial for the survival and diversification of the early generations, allowing for the development of more complex and interconnected societies. The presence of other humans and Cain's fear reflect the need to understand the social dynamics and population growth on Earth. The Bible, by focusing on specific stories, often omits details about how humanity developed in a broader context. However, the existence of a growing population demonstrates that the story of Cain and Abel is just one part of a larger narrative that encompasses the rise of civilization and the complexities of human relationships. Moreover, Cain's fear and the need for divine protection illustrate God's role in maintaining order and justice. The mark given to Cain was not only an act of mercy but also a means to ensure he found a safe place in a rapidly expanding world. This also highlights how divine protection extends not only to the righteous but also to those facing the consequences of their actions. As we explore Cain's life and the impact of his punishment, it is essential to consider how these events shaped the evolution of humanity and the development of early societies. Cain's fear and his relationship with the larger population introduce a perspective on how humanity began to organize and interact, setting the stage for the subsequent phases of the biblical narrative. God marked Cain to protect him, and he settled in the land of Nod, where he met his wife and had a son, Enoch. After being marked by God to ensure his protection, Cain found a new home in the land of Nod. This place, briefly mentioned in the Bible, symbolizes Cain's adaptation and survival following his punishment. God's mark served not only as a sign of protection but also allowed Cain to establish a new life in a region that would offer him a fresh start. Nod, with its conditions and resources, became the setting for the continuation of Cain's life and the development of his new family. Cain's life in Nod is marked by a significant new chapter, his marriage and the formation of a family. The Bible mentions that Cain met his wife and had a son named Enoch. The origin of Cain's wife is not detailed, leading to various interpretations and theories throughout history. The fact that Cain found a wife and started a family in Nod indicates that humanity continued to expand and diversify, with Cain playing a crucial role in this process. The founding of the city of Enoch by Cain is a notable aspect. Cain named the city in honor of his son, reflecting both the importance of continuing the lineage and the pursuit of a lasting legacy. The construction of a city symbolizes Cain's search for stability and belonging amid the consequences of his actions. Enoch, as Cain's son, represents hope and the continuation of life, even amidst a story marked by difficulties and punishment. This new phase in Cain's life, characterized by his ability to establish a family and a city, highlights human resilience and the capacity to adapt to change. Life in Nod contrasts with Cain's punishment, showing how he managed to find new purpose and build a future for himself and his descendants. This transformation is a significant part of the narrative, illustrating how, even after punishment and adversity, life continues and new opportunities arise. The story of Cain and Nod invites us to reflect on how we face the consequences of our actions and seek new beginnings. As we explore the impact of Cain in his new land, it is crucial to consider how he shaped his destiny and that of future generations. The next chapter will reveal how Cain's lineage and that of his brother Seth played distinct roles in the development of humanity. The Bible does not specify where Cain's wife came from, leading to various interpretations and theories. The lack of details about Cain's wife's origin in the Bible is a point of curiosity and speculation among scholars and readers. The Bible, focusing on spiritual and moral aspects, does not provide explicit information about this mysterious figure's background. This gap has generated numerous interpretations and theories over the years, reflecting the complexity of the biblical narrative and the human desire to understand every aspect of the sacred stories. Some interpretations suggest that Cain's wife might have been a sister or close relative. According to the biblical account, Adam and Eve had other sons and daughters besides Cain and Abel. The idea that Cain married a sister or close relative is an attempt to explain the presence of other people on earth as mentioned in the narrative. While this theory provides a way to fill the biblical gap, it also raises questions about the norms and practices of the time. Another approach is that Cain's wife could have come from a parallel lineage or a community not detailed in the scriptures. This theory explores the possibility that there were other families or human groups on earth that were not directly mentioned in the Bible. This perspective offers a broader view of population expansion and human diversity beyond Adam and Eve's immediate family. Moreover, it is important to consider that the Bible is a text focused on conveying spiritual and moral messages rather than reporting every historical detail. The lack of information about Cain's wife may serve to highlight the main message of the story, which is the relationship between humans and God, as well as the consequences of sin and redemption. This focus allows the text to concentrate on spiritual lessons without getting bogged down in details that might divert attention from the central purpose. The absence of a direct explanation about Cain's wife's origin also opens space for deeper discussions and reflections on how we interpret sacred texts and seek to understand the historical and spiritual context of the scriptures. As we move forward to explore other biblical figures and events, this critical and reflective approach can enrich our understanding of the narrative and the teachings contained in the Bible. Some interpretations suggest that Cain married a sister or close relative, given that Adam and Eve had other sons and daughters. The theory that Cain married a sister or close relative is one of the most discussed to explain the origin of his wife, considering the biblical context that Adam and Eve had other sons and daughters. According to the Genesis account, Adam and Eve were the first humans, and their offspring included several other sons and daughters, although only a few are named directly. This interpretation seeks to address the existence of a population beyond the immediate family, suggesting that sibling relationships were part of the initial human narrative. Marriage between siblings or close relatives was not uncommon in ancient times, especially in contexts where the population was small and needed to expand rapidly. Indeed, in various ancient cultures, intrafamily marriages were normal practices to ensure lineage continuity and preserve traditions. In Cain's case, such unions may have been necessary for the growth of humanity and the development of early societies. However, this concept may seem unusual by modern standards, where such practices are rare and often avoided due to ethical and health concerns. It is important to remember that the historical and cultural context of the time was very different, and social norms have evolved over time. Thus, the marriage between close relatives in the biblical narrative reflects a reality different from what we know today. Additionally, the Bible mentions that Adam and Eve had other sons and daughters after Cain and Abel, as in Genesis 5 verse 4, which states that Adam had sons and daughters. This detail reinforces the idea that there were other people available for marriage and procreation. The interpretation that Cain married a sister or close relative is, therefore, an attempt to fill the gap left by the biblical text, offering a plausible solution within the narrative context. Exploring this theory prompts us to reflect on how cultural practices and norms evolve over time and how ancient texts can be interpreted in light of contemporary knowledge and values. As we examine the story of Cain and its implications, we can appreciate the complexity of early human societies and how the Bible addresses issues of origin and human development. Marriage between close relatives was culturally accepted for the propagation of humanity. In the biblical context and ancient cultures, marriage between close relatives was a common and culturally accepted practice. Though it may seem unusual by modern standards, this practice played a crucial role in the propagation of humanity and the preservation of lineages and traditions. In early times, when populations were small and societies were forming, marrying close relatives was a way to ensure family continuity and population expansion. The example of Abraham, who married his half-sister Sarah, illustrates how this practice was viewed as an acceptable norm in antiquity. Abraham and Sarah, mentioned in Genesis, formed a union that was fundamental to the development of the Israelite nation. Marrying close relatives not only ensured the preservation of lineage but also strengthened essential family and social bonds for community stability. Another relevant biblical example is the story of Noah's sons, who repopulate the earth after the flood. Marriages between close relatives were necessary for the repopulation of humanity from a reduced family. Therefore, this practice played a crucial role in the formation and growth of early civilizations, ensuring that the human population could expand and diversify. The cultural acceptance of marriage between close relatives is also reflected in other ancient traditions. Many ancient cultures, such as the Egyptians and the Romans, practiced marriages among family members to preserve the purity of royal lineage and ensure the continuity of power and traditions. Although these practices have changed over time due to new understandings and concerns about genetic health, they were common and necessary in specific historical contexts. When considering the practice of marriage between close relatives, it is important to recognize the historical and cultural context in which these decisions were made. Social norms and values have evolved, and what was acceptable in the past may not be suitable today. However, understanding these practices helps us appreciate the complexity of human development and how ancient societies addressed the challenges of their time. The Book of Jubilees, an apocryphal text not included in the official Bible canon, mentions Cailima as Cain's wife and Asherah as Seth's wife. The Book of Jubilees, an apocryphal text that is not part of the official Bible canon, provides an additional perspective on Cain's wife. In this text, Cailima is mentioned as Cain's wife, while Asherah is identified as Seth's wife. Although the Book of Jubilees is not recognized by all religious traditions, it offers an intriguing view of biblical figures and their stories. Cailima, as described in the Book of Jubilees, is presented as a figure who married Cain, helping to fill in the gap regarding the origin of Cain's wife. This detail offers an alternative explanation to the biblical narrative, suggesting that there were more details about ancient families that were not included in the canonical text. The inclusion of Cailima highlights the importance of apocryphal texts in providing a richer and more varied understanding of biblical stories. Similarly, Asherah, Seth's wife, is mentioned in the Book of Jubilees. This addition to the biblical account also offers a more detailed view of the genealogy and family relationships of the early humans. The presence of Asherah in the narrative emphasizes how apocryphal texts can provide additional information that helps build a more complete picture of biblical stories. These details, provided by texts like the Book of Jubilees, illustrate how ancient traditions and lesser-known texts can enrich our understanding of biblical narratives. Although they are not part of the official canon, these texts offer alternative perspectives and additional details that can deepen our knowledge of the origins of biblical figures and their stories. Considering these apocryphal texts invites us to reflect on the diversity of sources and interpretations available regarding biblical stories. As we explore these additional insights, we can gain a more complete and nuanced view of the events and figures that shaped the biblical narrative. Cain founded a city named Enoch in honor of his son. After Cain's condemnation and his move to the land of Nod, the Bible recounts that he established a city and named it after his son, Enoch. This act of naming a city after a family member reflects Cain's desire to build a new life and leave a legacy, even amidst his difficulties and punishments. Thus, the city of Enoch symbolizes Cain's attempt to create something enduring and meaningful from his new reality. The foundation of the city of Enoch highlights Cain's effort to rebuild his life and the importance of establishing roots in a new territory. In a biblical context, founding cities and creating communities were ways to demonstrate presence and success in a new phase of life. Cain's choice to name the city after his son shows an emotional connection and an attempt to perpetuate the memory and influence of his family. Moreover, the act of founding a city can be seen as a way to offset the punishment Cain received. Although he was cursed and condemned to wander, creating a space where he could live and prosper represents an effort to affirm his identity and worth despite the adversities imposed by God. This aspect of Cain's narrative offers a reflection on how people can seek meaning and stability in their lives, even in the face of significant challenges. The story of Cain and the foundation of the city of Enoch also reminds us of the importance of creating legacies and leaving lasting marks, regardless of circumstances. This element of the biblical narrative can inspire reflections on how each of us can strive to create something positive and meaningful in our own lives, even when facing difficulties. Examining the foundation of the city of Enoch invites us to consider the impact of our individual choices and actions in shaping our own legacies and forming our communities. The lineage of Seth, Abel's substitute, is considered righteous and culminates in Noah, who was chosen to save humanity in the flood. The lineage of Seth, who emerges as Abel's successor, plays a crucial role in the biblical narrative and is regarded as a righteous and God-fearing line. Seth is presented as the son who inherited Abel's role after his death, and his descendants are described as a line of righteousness and devotion to God. This lineage is important because it contrasts with the lineage of Cain, which is marked by conflict and transgressions. The Bible emphasizes the significance of Seth's lineage by tracing its generations up to Noah. Noah, chosen by God to survive the flood and repopulate the earth, represents the culmination of this righteous lineage. Noah's selection for this monumental task highlights the importance of remaining faithful and righteous in the eyes of God, and how such faithfulness is rewarded with significant divine responsibilities. Noah's story and his family reflect the continuity and preservation of God's purpose for humanity. Through Noah, the Bible demonstrates how Seth's lineage plays a vital role in renewing the earth and maintaining divine principles. The story of Noah and the flood serves as a testament to the importance of righteousness and obedience, and how these qualities can influence significant events in history. In addition to its role in the biblical narrative, Seth's lineage and Noah's story also offer lessons on the importance of adhering to principles of righteousness and aligning with divine purposes. These stories remind us that justice and obedience can have a lasting and significant impact, and that faithfulness to God can lead to great responsibilities and opportunities to influence the world. Reflecting on Seth's lineage and Noah's role invites us to consider how our own actions and choices can contribute to a positive legacy and the fulfillment of divine purposes in our lives. The Bible focuses on spiritual and moral lessons, without including all historical details, highlighting the limitation of human understanding of God's plans. The Bible is a text filled with spiritual and moral lessons that guide the lives of believers and help understand the relationship between humanity and God. However, it's important to remember that the Bible is not a history book in the modern sense, with all the meticulous details and complete historical facts. Instead, it concentrates on conveying fundamental spiritual and moral principles that shape individual lives and behavior. For example, the narratives about biblical figures like Cain, Abel, and Noah are not merely stories about past events but also vehicles for teaching lessons about obedience, repentance, and faithfulness to God. These stories are presented to highlight spiritual and moral principles, even if not all historical details are provided. The Bible also reflects the limitation of human understanding when it comes to God's plans. Many aspects of biblical stories and divine purposes remain mysterious and beyond our full comprehension. The lack of complete historical details can be seen as a reflection of this human limitation, inviting us to trust in divine wisdom and seek understanding through faith and spiritual revelation. This focus on spiritual and moral lessons also reminds us that, even when facing questions and uncertainties about historical accuracy or details of biblical events, the most important aspect is the spiritual and moral message these stories convey. The Bible teaches us to seek spiritual truth and live according to the principles God desires for us, regardless of any historical gaps that may exist. Therefore, when reading and reflecting on the Bible, it is essential to keep in mind that the primary focus is on spiritual and moral lessons, and that understanding God's plans may extend beyond what is immediately visible or comprehensible to us. As we delve into the hidden stories of Adam and Eve and the intriguing narrative about Cain's wife, we are invited to explore the depths of biblical texts and question what we truly know about the origins of humanity. The Bible, with its focus on spiritual and moral lessons, leaves gaps that, when filled with new discoveries and interpretations, can offer surprising insights. What other secrets might be hidden between the lines of the Scriptures? And how might these insights impact the way we live and understand our own spiritual journey? Let yourself be inspired by these revelations and continue exploring, questioning, and growing. If you found these discoveries challenging and intriguing, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss more content that could transform your understanding and life.